You know, and folks, I appreciate your sending around that Lou Dobbs thing. Here is, I don't like to play Newsmax, but I thought it was hard to argue with Lin Wood's point when he appeared on Newsmax, which is telling Georgian Republican voters not to vote. I mean, it's hard to argue. I'll try and argue with it afterwards, but let's see the case he's making.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about the runoff. You drew a little bit of heat last week because, you were skeptical about, hey, what's going to happen on January 5th? Are we going to participate or not? You know, the people interpreted your remarks in all kinds of ways. How do you stand right now on the January 5th Senate runoff? Should Georgians get out there, especially Republicans, and vote?
I take the same position now that I took at that rally. The January 5th runoff is a runoff based on an unlawful and illegal election in Georgia. There was fraud in the special mail, the absentee mail ballots. There was computer fraud in the voting machines, which are owned by China. Why in the world would you go and vote in another rigged election? I have not told anyone not to vote. What I have said is that Kelly Loeffler needs to support an investigation into the fraud, demand that the governor of Georgia hold a special session of the legislature to fix it. David Perdue ought to do the same thing. The people in Georgia are mad. They know who they voted for. They know their votes were stolen. And I believe that Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue owe it to the voters, the people, to fix that November 3rd election. And if they don't, I tell you right now, I don't live in Venezuela. I'm not going to go vote in a rigged election because you're going to be validating and affirming that it's okay to do so.
Now, I get his point, but it's really hard to argue with the point he's making if you're a Republican voter, because you, as first principle, you think that there shouldn't be runoff in the first place. And why would you participate in that vote as a Republican voter? Now, but with that said, if he did live in Venezuela, of course he wouldn't be able to vote in Georgia because he wouldn't be a resident of Georgia. And he wouldn't be valid to
Sam,
vote.
You're wrong, because it's so rigged by Brian Kemp that Venezuelans are able to vote in Georgia, which is why real Georgia
Georgia.
Right. They're basically one and the same at this point due to Soros buying Brian Kemp, showering him with gifts. Brian Kemp, known socialist, and it's only going to go one direction anyway, so you should be discouraged.
It is going to be fascinating to see if World Net Daily and this crew of people, and I guess Lou Dobbs, are going to be able to make the difference in this Georgian runoff. I mean, it's going to be fascinating.
Also, it bugs me still that these Republicans who talk about vote rigging all the time now just because they're following Trump's lead, this is the party that's been gerrymandering out the wazoo and redistricting and trying to disenfranchise Black voters, Latino voters, people who are more inclined to vote blue. And then they have the gall to constantly go out there and talk about how it's rigged against them in a Senate where it's way overrepresented their entire base. Like, Montana has the same amount of senators as California, but you guys are the victims here. But as Trump said, we're all victims. So that's the mentality that we're seeing.